Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 272, and this is a show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week. So this week I had a bit of a smaller pile, and as you notice, it is a day late. I'm sorry, this week was really nuts. I'm producing a short film, and we shot it this week, so the hours were crazy, and had no time to read comics and get this review up. So I am now doing that, and let's get started. Number 14 for me this week is Deathstroke issue 39. This book just hasn't been where I wanted it to be in a long time. I read it because I like Rose a lot, and I want to see where her story goes. And when it does have to do with the family, I think this book is so good. But I'm not really enjoying the Arkham Asylum story and his team up with these villains. I felt like it was really scattered, and it has been scattered, this book, because you have Jericho, you have Rose, and obviously Deathstroke that they're all trying to focus on, but none of the story is kind of weaving like it used to, so it just kind of all feels so separate and, again, crowded. But the artwork is always really good for this book, but just haven't been really liking this arc, and overall, gonna give that one 2 stars. Moving on to number 13, which is Die, issue 2. I am not a Dungeons & Dragons person. I've never played before, but I will say if you like that type of role-playing games, you'll love this. But it really got into itself with this issue, and it seems like the first issue was just establishing the characters, and now we're there. We're in the world. And for me, that actually took me out of it. I didn't really quite care about the world. I couldn't really connect to it, and I still don't feel like I know these characters well enough to kind of remember what everyone's roles are. I kept forgetting which characters were which, because there are a lot, and again, you're being introduced to so much at once. So also I think it's the artwork. It's I like the style, but it dampens things a lot, and again, it's really hard to connect to it because of that. So I'm going to give that 2.5 stars, and that is number 13. Moving on to number 12, disappointed to see this solo, and that is Criminal, issue 1. I've never read any of the other Criminal books, and that's why this is so low. It's not really new reader friendly, and I kind of figured out as I was reading the middle. I'm like, oh, these characters were in the previous volume, so that's why I don't really get what's going on, or why I'm connecting to these characters fully. And that's why it's low, you know, it's just not new reader friendly. I'm a new reader to this book. I still like, obviously, the narration. I love the artwork for this book. And the reason why I picked it up is because I loved Kill or Be Killed, and I really like this creative team. But it looks like I'm going to have to maybe wait for this one and not read in single issues and maybe catch up with Criminal if I'm interested. Probably pick up the other ones first, because I haven't read Fatal or Fade Out or Fade In, whichever it's called, because those books are supposed to be really good too. But yeah, gonna give this one 2.5 stars. Like I said, just couldn't really connect to this and was disappointed that it didn't really feel too new reader friendly to me. Alright, moving on to number 11, which is Miles Morales, Spider-Man, issue 2. It's just kind of there for me, sadly, and I want more for Miles, because I really enjoy the character, and obviously he has a big name now with Into the Spider-Verse. You want a great title for him, and here I think it's just very by the numbers. And to start out a first arc with this type of plot line, I'm just not interested. I like Rhino and Miles teaming up with each other, but that's kind of it that I really enjoyed here that felt different and special. And then everything else is just kind of going through the motions. Artwork, I'm not a huge fan of the shading here. There's like a lot of glares on Spider-Man that look weird. And also just not a big fan of some of the character designs. Like Donkey with a man bun is still weird to me. So I'm not loving the artwork for this book. And again, it just feels very by the numbers. I'm going to stick with it for at least an arc and see where it goes, but I want a little bit more of a hook for this book, because it's been a while since we've had a big story for Miles. So, giving this one 2.5 stars, and that is number 13, I believe? No, that was number 11. Number 10 is Batman, issue 62, and I dropped one of my books. Yeah, Batman, low again. It just kind of feels like it's doing the same thing every issue and repeating itself. I feel like it's been doing that since issue 50. But but I do like Mr. Miracle a lot, so it's cool to see this creative team, and the artwork is mind-blowing. The colors are so vibrant, and that's why I couldn't bring it lower than this. And I even liked Batman's inner monologue of him utilizing Mr. Miracle's tricks to get out of the rope and figuring out from Batman's head how he's defeating Professor Pig, which is kind of a joke of a character for me, but making him more intense, which, you know, Tom King's been doing a good job with, and I would say recent Batman writers have been doing a good job with. But yeah, I didn't love the repetitiveness in the end, where it's like, oh, I miss Catwoman, and all this stuff is going on, and woe is me. It just needs some plot progression, and I hope we get that soon. So overall, I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Not a bad issue, just kind of want a little bit more from this series. It just feels like every issue is stalling for something. Alright, moving on to number 9, which is Birthright, issue 35. Another, you know, middle ground book for me, but I love when this series focuses on family, and that's what we get to see here. Brennan and Mikey's relationship, and how Brennan has been jealous of Mikey. And I did like seeing the parents here. We get to analyze their relationship a bit more too, and it's a cool I guess, idea of how magic could be addiction, and obviously we've seen this before in other stories like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but we get to see it in a new light here. An interesting cliffhanger. We are gonna have the family hopefully get the law enforcement away from them and actually maybe work together. We'll have to see, because they're trying to make a deal. So giving this one 3.5 stars. Still have the same issues about the artwork though. Doesn't feel completely rendered. Some of it feels blurry, but you kind of get used to it. It's 35 issues in, so but always have to say that note, because I want to talk about the art. Alright, moving on to number 8, which is Strangers in Paradise XXV, issue 9. A series that's ending soon, and it's so disappointing that Francine and Kachu have just not had enough screen time together, or panel time. And I do like, as a Terry Moore fan, how he's connecting everything. That is something I enjoyed, but I think if you're just a Strangers in Paradise fan, you might not get as much from this. You get a lot from the Echo book, that they're connecting the nuclear power, a lot from Rachel Rising, but not a lot from Strangers in Paradise. And this is the 25th anniversary of Strangers in Paradise, not called, I guess, the Moore universe. Even though, again, as a Moore fan, I enjoyed that. But I also have to review it as a Strangers in Paradise fan. I want a little bit more from those characters. So that's why I gave it 3.5 stars, but it's still a really great series, and I do like how they are connecting everything. I enjoyed seeing Lilith here, so giving this one 3.5 stars. And we'll see how this one starts ending. Alright, moving on to number 7, which is Young Justice, issue 1, which is the only, sadly, individual review I was able to do this week, but I did an individual review, so if you want more detail on it, you can go check that out. But overall, I like the artwork a lot here, because it was such a throwback to old school Young Justice, but still feeling obviously modern with the really crisp coloring. So that's something I liked, and even when Impulse came in, I'm like, oh my god, it feels like a page from the old Impulse comics. But the biggest struggle with, I think, any Bendis book as of recent is the pacing. It's all just one big battle. And I feel like a lot of it's taken of like, alright, I want Jenny Hex and Teen Lantern to be big characters, so let's just like have more panel time with them, and then the interesting stuff like Cassie coming back and saying, hey, I feel different, and you can see that she's hiding something. You know, Connor finally coming back. Again, the Tim and Cassie relationship. Like things you actually want in the issue 1 have such little panel time, and that's the disappointing part. But I think there's definitely some cool stuff here for me to get excited for, but as a first issue, I definitely wanted more, because it's been so long since we've seen these characters together in this light. So overall, I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. I did get both covers, or 2 covers. I got the Superboy one and Wonder Girl, but I want to mention that because I wasn't showing the Superboy ones in my pile over there. So moving on to number 6, which is Blackbird, issue 4. This has been a really solid series for me, and I think what has been the success of this series obviously is the artwork and the beautiful creativity and the magic coming to life, and just seeing Jen Bertel do interior artwork is always great. But also the more self-discovery story here, the more personal story with our main character and in her connection to magic, where she always feels like this outsider, which is always this idea of magic, but she's also an outsider to the magic world that she wants to be a part of, which is such an interesting story to be told here. And that's especially played out when you see she meets her mother. You think her mother would be there with open arms. She's like, nah, all right, you gotta go to the side now. I'm dealing with some magic stuff. And obviously the daughter is like, what's going on? You know, I've spent years trying to wrap my head around my mom being dead, and now she's not, and she doesn't really quite care that I'm here. So now it's just her trying to pursue, hey, I am good enough, and I'm going to show you why. And that's a really cool story. So overall, I thought this was a really solid issue. I actually like the character more than the magical world, which is weird, which is why it's not my top 5, but I think it has potential to be a really cool series. So if you're not reading this one, I think you should definitely at least try it out. So I'm giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Captain Marvel issue 1. I thought this was a really solid beginning for Captain Marvel. Nothing that blew my mind though, and I think it's because of the length of this issue. I think one of the biggest problems for 90% of Marvel issue 1s is that they're way too long, and they never had to be that long. It's all just for the price point, and I think this issue struggles with that. But I like the emotions that this book does take, you know, focusing on classic relationships like Jessica and Carol. We get to see Carol and Rhodey, and not forgetting what happened in Life of Captain Marvel, which is been one of my favorite Captain Marvel stories, probably of all time. So it was nice to have that. And then just kind of that Avengers, I would say old school Avengers vibe that I've missed from Marvel, but in a Captain Marvel book. And having some characters that we haven't seen in a while, like Havoc. I really enjoy her character. And just Avengers Academy in general, and they've been pushed to the side, so it's cool to see characters like that. And then you have an interesting kind of Elseworld possible story with the revolutionary characters here. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, it was a good character story. And nothing plot-wise where I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna happen, but I thought it was a solid start, and I like the voice Kelly Thompson has brought to Carol, and that they finally grounded her. They said, hey, you know, I was in space for a long time, but now she's the superhero on Earth, and that's kind of what I've missed about the character. So I'm overall gonna give this 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is X-23 issue 8. I've enjoyed this arc so far, even though it's about clones again, which is like, alright, have we done this? It's a different view of clones, and do we trust this cybernetic clone that I think is going to really tear Gabby and Laura apart, because Gabby wants to trust her, but then Laura's like, hey, we gotta be cautious here because I know what I am. And we're really getting to see that struggle again. And the way it happens, though, it's not like, oh, we're going back to that story where Laura thinks she's a killer. You still see the character growth of Tom Taylor's run, but you do see that you sometimes do think about your past, and I like the balance of that. And I especially love that panel where Laura is thinking about it, and she doesn't even realize her claws come out. I thought that was cool. Diego has done a really great job with this. I love the, you know, even the small moments where Gabby's smiling, but then he also gets those emotional punches really well. So I've been enjoying the artwork, and overall I feel like this is a really solid story. So I'm going to give that one 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, issue 1. And I will say this would have been higher if the second story was the first story, and the first story was the second story. Because I like the first story a lot. It's just the idea of Spider-Man being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He is the hero of the streets, that he'll help the grandma crossing the street, you know? And I love that idea and the way it was played out. But as a ongoing series, I'm like, well, what is issue 2 going to be? Is it always just going to be him saving these little small moments? Like, how does that make an arc? But then you go into the second story where it's about Aunt May having cancer and her trying to write this letter to Peter, some really emotional stuff. And you're like, whoa, I kind of wish I saw more of that. And where's that going to be continued? Is it always going to be a secondary story? So that was my issue with this issue. But I did have a lot of fun with both stories, and I am looking forward to seeing where this goes. So overall, giving this one 4 stars. I really like the artwork for the secondary story. Just felt really classic to me. And then also I enjoy the clean artwork of Cable's work here as well, that we've seen in All New Wolverine and other titles as well. But All New Wolverine because Tom Taylor's writing this, so they've worked together in the past, and it's pretty nice. I enjoyed the artwork. So overall, going to give this one 4 stars, like I said, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Spider-Gwen Ghost Spider issue 4. I really liked the emotional beats here. I love the beginning of this issue where we get to see Gwen just playing the drums and she feels broken. She breaks the stick and she just breaks down. And I love that as obviously a Spider-Gwen fan. That's how she was introduced. She's playing the drums, losing herself, and just bringing that music back to this series that I have missed. And obviously we haven't had as much time for. So it's nice to see that connected to her emotional arc, because the music has always been so connected to her emotional arc. So that was nice. Things I didn't like about this, even though I love the emotion here, is the reason why the emotion was happening. You know, Spider-Man UK. Yes, they were in Web Warriors together, but I never felt like, oh yeah, they were best friends. So it's kind of weird to see that. And then obviously just focusing so much on Spider-Gwen. I get that they kind of had to, but I felt like there's some story threads here that was never actually played out as well in Spider-Gwen. So I liked and disliked that, because it's like, cool, we're finally getting story for Spider-Gwen, but shouldn't have this been in the main title? I felt like there were some threads that just kind of come out of nowhere where I'm like, oh, I didn't even like see that in Spider-Gwen. Again, that's a positive and negative, I feel, because like, cool, you pulled that out, you teased that out to give us some good story from Spider-Gwen, but at the same time, it's just like, why are we still focusing on Spider-Gwen? But yeah, I liked how Gwen kind of relates to this, though, and her really playing the soldier here, where she has to go and tell everyone, their loved ones, hey, you know, this spider person died. I thought was really strong. And it does connect to so much of Gwen's history, where I love that line where she says that whenever you think Gwen Stacy, you think death. And not just Gwen Stacy herself, but her mom died. You know, she says, you know, I didn't even know how to speak and I went to a funeral. So it was a good issue. And again, the emotion is why this is so high up. I really enjoyed that. And I really like, what's it called? Let me get his name. The artist, Takashi, who did Miss Marvel, really liked his art in the beginning. I think was even better than Campy's art. Even though I like Campy as well, I did like Takashi's style for this book. And the emotion that he brought to those first few pages. So overall, I'm going to give this one 4 stars, and definitely excited to see where this is going to take Gwen. She definitely seems like more on the hero's journey after this, which I'm happy about. Alright, moving on to number 1, which is Go-Go Power Rangers issue 16. This was a really fun issue. I like how we get to see our Rangers playing with the different colors and showing different sides of themselves. And I guess the answer is that the color does make the Ranger, because when Kimberly was the Blue Ranger, she kind of had more of a strategy with her fighting. So that was cool. And one thing I loved was just seeing Trini as the leader here, because she's the character out of all the Power Rangers, I feel like that was never really had as much story in the original Power Rangers, and just not enough love. So it was really nice to see her as the leader and everyone just following her. And obviously the small threads that I've been loving about Go-Go Power Rangers is just seeing these character moments grow, like Jason and Trini maybe trying someone out with their relationship. I loved that we get to see Kimberly talk to Bulk, saying, hey, Skull's a gentleman, and I was the one who was trying to you know, play a move on him, and he actually knew the situation and he didn't move forward on that. So I like those moments and those small character moments, but we get a lot of plot progression as well here with Rita. Even though the Rangers don't finish their battle, Rita is, looks like planning to make another Green Ranger, learning a little bit more of the history of the Green Rangers, and a new character popping up here in the end with the new Alpha. So what's going to happen there? So overall, I thought it was a really solid issue, some really interesting plot threads to play with in the future, and just seeing the team, you know, in a different light was cool. So I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. That is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic You Know. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links to my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. Don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And of course, every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Frontline Live, where we talk about our top 5 comics and comic book news. So be sure to check that out as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic You Know. Bye.